Hello everyone, welcome back to another Project Gladiator weather forecast. Today I'm going to be covering the weather for June 12th of 2023. Currently we have an enhanced risk for the center of Texas here, with a trailing slight risk that goes all the way to Georgia from central Texas, as well as another slight risk along the eastern coast of the United States, which goes all the way from North Carolina all the way to southern New Jersey, as well as a slight risk pretty much in the same area as yesterday. And this is all connected by one large marginal threat. As for our threats today, we do have a little bit of a 5% tornado threat for that central Texas threat, as well as a 2% for the eastern coast slight risk, and a 2% back towards the Colorado and New Mexico slight risk area. As for our wind threats, we do have a 15% hatch significant threat for that enhanced risk area, with a 15% on that trailing slight risk, and a 15% for that slight risk along the coast. Not really all that much of an increase for the slight risk back towards Colorado. As for our hail threats, we do have a hatch significant threat on a 30% for northern Texas in the central Texas area, and a 15% along that trailing slight risk, with 30% for that enhanced risk area. We do have a hatch significant threat for that slight risk area back towards Colorado on a 15%, but we don't really have all that much of a hail increase on that slight risk towards the coast, and this is all connected by one large 5% hail threat. Taking a look at our pivotal weather models, you can already see right off the bat that jet stream has increased since yesterday, which is going to help with very strong wind shear mostly across Texas and help fuel that hatch significant threat for hail in both locations. But let's take a look at the eastern coast threat, because we don't really see all that much of a strong influence back towards here, but we do have a little bit of strong mid-level flow in the 20 knots to 30 knots. We do have a little bit of a cold front attached to this low pressure system that's situated right here. The cold front is somewhat right here, and with great moisture from the Atlantic Ocean, it should be able to trigger some continuated severe weather from whatever is left over from yesterday. Back towards Texas, we can see that we have a strong increasing mid-level flow in the 50 knots to 40 knots. That's going to help with very strong wind shear and contribute to not only our tornado threat, but also our very large hail threat as well. Potentially see gorilla hail in both locations back towards Colorado and in the Texas region. But overall, all this is going to be the main trigger for severe weather development. But over here, again, it is a little bit different. But overall, this jet stream is going to be the main trigger for severe weather development today. Taking a look at our 700 millibars, I don't really do this too often, but I do want to take a look at the embedded shortwave trough that is going to help influence severe weather development back towards the coast. This shortwave trough should generate the possibility of some strong low-level shear amidst the weaker mid-level flow to help generate a little bit of wind shear for that 2% tornado threat, as well as the possibility of some small to medium-sized hail depending on our cape. But then that's really the only place that we're seeing notable strong low-level flow. I did want to touch on that a little bit and how it might affect our severe weather development today. Taking a look at our dew points, let's start off with the eastern coast. You can see that we have dew points from the Atlantic Ocean being sort of pulled up north from the Gulf Coast and a little bit from the Atlantic Ocean from further down south by that low pressure system situated over the Michigan and Great Lakes area that's pulling all this moisture up north to help contribute to some instability depending on our lapse rates. With this moisture and dew points in the mid to upper 60s, not really all that much in the 70s, we could possibly see some fairly strong instability, again depending on our lapse rates. But then let's take a look at the enhanced risk back towards Texas. We do have dew points that are in the mid 70s and upper 60s. With whatever lapse rates we have, that can lead to extremely strong instability, unlike anything I've ever seen on this channel before. But then severe weather development should be aided a little bit by this little dry line here that develops and should contribute to a little bit of increased instability, as well as overall help aid with severe weather development. And then back towards the slight risk in the Colorado, New Mexican area. Dew points in the 50s, mid to upper 50s, depending on our lapse rates, is mostly going to lead to probably some moderate to upper moderate CAPE values. Not really anything insane that like we're seeing in Texas, again, depending on our lapse rates. Now let's take a look at our lapse rates. Let's start off with the eastern coast again. We don't really have all that strong, notable lapse rates that is going to affect our instability all that much. However, that trailing cold front could aid in instability a little bit, but overall lapse rates are probably going to inhibit the instability values a little bit. But then let's take a look at the lapse rates back towards Texas in that enhanced risk area. We have fairly strong lapse rates with that very deep moisture lapse rates in the 7s and low 8s. It's going to contribute to CAPE that possibly reach the 4,000s and definitely the 3,000s in some areas. But then let's take a look at the lapse rates back towards the Colorado and New Mexico slight risk area. Lapse rates in the mid to upper and I think low 6s, mostly just staying around the 6s, is going to contribute to probably instability that will reach mostly in the moderates in the 1000s range, possibly the upper 1000s range, not really all that much in the 2000s range. Taking a look at our instability, starting off with a slight risk along the coast of the United States again, we don't really have all that strong instability, which is to be expected with the lack of strong lapse rates and slightly decreased dew points a little bit compared to everywhere else. It's only going to possibly reach CAPE values of the 1000s to possibly the upper 1000s in some regions, which is going to contribute to the possibility of that 2% tornado threat depending on our wind shear values. But then this will also allow for the possibility of some small to possibly medium-sized hail, again depending on our wind shear. But now let's take a look at the enhanced risk with the trailing slight risk behind it. For the enhanced risk region, you can already see that dry line that's developed between very strong instability and pretty much no instability at all. This should definitely aid with severe weather development, also possibly aid a little bit in the CAPE values, getting them up even higher. We can possibly see CAPE values that reach the mid 4,000s to possibly the upper 3,000s and mid 3,000s. This is going to really contribute with whatever wind shear we have to that 5% tornado threat, as well as the possibility of some gorilla-sized hail depending on our wind shear. And then let's take a look at the slight risk back towards the Colorado region. We have CAPE values that are mostly reaching the 1000s to mid 1000s, not really all that much in the upper 1000s. However, it does display it a little bit. It is going to stay mostly around the 1000s to 1500 range with whatever wind shear we have. This could contribute to our 2% tornado threat, as well as allow for the possibility of some small to medium-sized hail. Now let's take a look at our wind shear and how it might contribute to our tornado and large hail threats across the United States. Let's focus on the slight risk region along the coast, where you can see some prominent wind shear off the bat, which is likely left over from convection the other day. In fact, I had a wall cloud pass over my house, and I have a few pictures that I posted in the Project Gladiator Discord server if you want to check that out. It's pretty neat. But back towards the slight risk area, we do have some fairly weaker wind shear definitely compared to yesterday. This wind shear is going to allow for the possibility of some that 2% tornado threat, as well as the possibility of some small to medium-sized hail. But this weaker wind shear is going to definitely have a possibility of a decreased tornado threat compared to yesterday. But then let's take a look at the enhanced risk, where we have that 5% tornado threat back in Texas. We have fairly strong wind shear across the spectrum for pretty much surrounding all the convection that you can see in the center there. This strong wind shear is definitely going to allow for the possibility of some tornadoes, as well as the possibility of some very, very large hail, possibly gorilla-sized hail again. But then this is going to contribute to the 5% tornado threat. We could possibly see multiple tornado warnings going at a time with wind shear like this, and those extremely strong CAPE values. But then let's take a look at the wind shear back towards the slight risk in Colorado. We do have fairly weaker wind shear, but it does look sufficient enough for a 2% tornado threat beginning off today, but then it seems to decrease as wind shear decreases. So earlier in the day we should have that 2% tornado threat, which then diminishes over time. But this definitely looks sufficient enough for a small 2% tornado threat, as well as the possibility of some large hail as well. Now that I've told you the weather, please go down to the description and check out the socials for Project Gladiator, and join the Discord for any updates on Project Gladiator. And if you want to check out that wall glad picture that I got from the other day, then hop on down to the Project Gladiator Discord server where you can see it. And hopefully I will see you guys tomorrow with another forecast.